Ladies and gentlemen, Cyberpunk 2077 is fast approaching. September is almost here, although time is going a lot more slowly with everything that's going on right now in the world. But we shall persevere, and we will all make it to play Cyberpunk 2077. We'll get through this, and I'm really looking forward to this game, obviously. And I'm also curious about the DLCs that it will get, which CD Projekt Red recently talked about, and many people are curious about how many DLCs we'll get, how big they will be. Will they be expansion size like they were in Witcher 3? Are we going to get some free DLCs as well? And CD Projekt Red has previously stated that, it's pretty much going to be like Witcher 3, so bite-sized pieces of DLC alongside expansions that will really add to the game and not be stingy with content. And this was further detailed in a recent article published by IGN, whose headline reads, Cyberpunk 2077 will get DLC at least as large as The Witcher 3's announced before launch. So this is translated from IGN Poland. Kaczynski revealed that players can expect expansion size no less than Witcher 3. And then right here it talks about how big Blood and Wine and Heart of Stone is. And if we actually take a look at how long to beat, we can see right here that Heart of Stone took around 15 hours, 14 to 15 hours to beat if you do both the main storyline and a couple extras here and there. And if you're a completionist, it'll take you about 19 to 20 hours. Whereas if you rush through the main storyline, it might take you like 10 hours. And then there is Blood and Wine, which takes much longer to beat, roughly 28 to 30 hours to beat the main story if you do side quests along the way, 15 and a half hours if you rush through it, and around 41 hours if you are a completionist. And this is all collected from user data who submitted their playtimes with these titles. And so the average person would take, 28 and a half plus 14, that's, 42 hours or so to beat both of these DLCs. And then the completionist would take, 20 hours plus 40, so 60 hours or so to beat both expansions. And so that's roughly what you can probably expect with however many DLCs are released for Cyberpunk 2077. And they emphasized, no less than Witcher 3. In other words, they might go even a little further, and these DLCs might be even a little bigger. As for when we will see these DLCs for Cyberpunk announced, well, it's going to be very similar to Witcher 3, which announced plans for DLC like a couple weeks before the game's official launch, before Witcher 3's original launch date. And we can actually see that detailed in this article by news outlet Video Games Chronicle, which reads, on announcement timing, Kaczynski said to expect a similar scenario to The Witcher 3, when DLC packs were announced 3 months before its planned release, which was later delayed, and expansions detailed a few weeks ahead of its release. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt released with an extensive DLC calendar, which saw 2 pieces of free DLC drop every week for 2 months following the game's release. The Witcher 3 DLC packs included 5 new quests, new weapons, and armor sets, cosmetics, and a new Game Plus mode. The game's 2 story-driven expansions, Heart of Stone and Blood and Wine, were announced and detailed several weeks before The Witcher 3's release, promising an additional 30 hours of gameplay. They released in October 2015 and May 2016, and the promised hours actually turned out to be more, with the average person again taking around 40 hours to beat both DLCs. And with CD Projekt insisting that Cyberpunk 2077 won't be much different in that regard, that it's going to be a similar scenario to The Witcher 3, it probably means that late August or early September, within a couple days or a couple weeks before Cyberpunk 2077's launch, is when we'll likely see announcements regarding what DLC plans are for Cyberpunk. Now, do keep in mind that while I understand the skepticism surrounding DLCs, with a lot of companies having taken advantage of that business model, CD Projekt has done it right before. It isn't about excluding content in the base game so that they can then sell it separately. When they announced this before the game's launch, it's them detailing what their plans are, but the fact remains that development for those DLCs won't begin until after the base game launches. They probably have some ideas in terms of what they want to do, but they're not purposely excluding that content. It's just new ideas that are expanded upon from the original. It's like the traditional expansions we got back in the good old days when, Oblivion got Shivering Isles, like that type of expansion, rather than, here are some skins that we're not going to put in the base game so we can sell separately to you. For that, they're going to have free DLCs for Cyberpunk 2077 for more bite-sized stuff like that. And so it's a great business model, and the pricing of these DLCs have been very generous. Here's an article from news outlet Polygon published back in April 2015, so a few weeks before Witcher 3's launch, detailing the cost of Witcher 3's expansions. If you get the expansion pass, that's $25. Heart of Stone by itself will cost $9.99 or $10. Blood and Wine will cost $20, so that's $30 total if you get them separately, and then $25 if you get the expansion pass. And that gave you roughly 40 hours of content on average, so really good pricing for a whole lot of content, really good bang for your buck. And I expect Cyberpunk 2077 expansions will be no different. They're really going to make them substantial and sell them at a reasonable cost. I will also be curious to see the release timing of these DLCs. As far as Witcher 3 goes, this title launched in May 2015, and then it was in October that we finally saw the first piece of DLC, the first piece of expansion, that is Heart of Stone. So that's, May, June, July, August, September, October. It's 5 months between the launch of Witcher 3 and its first expansion. And then from there, Blood and Wine took a couple more months to make. So October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May. That's 7 additional months. And between the launch of Witcher 3 and the second bigger expansion, that's a whole year, a little over a year. I don't know if Cyberpunk 2077 will have a similar timing in terms of when these expansions will release, or if it'll take longer to develop expansions for that game because of just, more advanced technology that they're using to bring the world of Cyberpunk to life. We don't even know the exact quantity of expansions, if it's going to be 2 like Witcher, or if they'll take it a step further and maybe do 3. Either way, I would suspect that at the very least, it'll take around a year to get at least 2 expansions out for Cyberpunk 2077, and if development somehow ends up taking longer, it might be, a year and a half, 2 years, but, we're going to get new content after the release of Cyberpunk 2077, a game that really looks incredible and that I'm sure many people will be excited to dive back into with new content, new quests, new storylines, and maybe a new section of the map, like how Blood and Wine did it. It should be noted that back in 2017, CD Projekt Red emphasized that Cyberpunk 2077 in terms of business model would be, quote, nothing less than Witcher 3. In this tweet, that was a response to a YouTuber, Pretty Good Gaming, who posted about potentially Cyberpunk 2077 going live service based on a quote that was misinterpreted. But they emphasize it's going to be a huge single-player open-world game, story-driven RPG, no hidden catch, no bullshit. You get what you pay for, honest gaming with like Wild Hunt. And this is all amidst news that CD Projekt Red is still looking forward to releasing this game in September. With the ongoing pandemic, there are questions about whether Cyberpunk 2077 can be completed on time. CD Projekt Red insists that they're in a comfortable place right now. They did struggle with some of the localization in terms of voice actors who have to work remotely now, and just arranging all of that has been more difficult, but that's not necessarily a major risk. It's not something we identified as a major risk, as Noah Kowski put it. And so they're still on schedule, and they believe that, despite going full remote work environment, they are in a position where they will finish the game on time. And fingers crossed that that is indeed the case, and that DLC plans haven't been derailed as a result of the ongoing pandemic, this international crisis. And then right here in this financial report posted on April 8th, 2020, CD Projekt Red not only talks about how incredibly well they did last year financially due to the incredible resurgence of Witcher 3 after the release of the Netflix show that made the games and the books sell better. They also emphasized here once again that they're steaming towards the September release of Cyberpunk, and that they essentially had record expenditures, that most of which likely went into Cyberpunk. And they also made their money back because of all the revenue that they made with Witcher 3 that year. And so they're in a good place right now, both as a company and apparently in terms of the development cycle of this title and how much progress they have made. Apparently the core game is complete. It's a matter of just refining everything, putting the pieces together, and making sure everything runs as intended and that it is the most polished experience possible. But this is where we're at with Cyberpunk 2077, and this is what we know about the upcoming DLCs and expansions for Cyberpunk and what CD Projekt Red's plans are for them. I, for one, am really loving what I'm hearing so far. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on all of this information. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.